Hello everyone, in this proposal I will explore briefly how the monstrous space in the epic poem Beowulf has been characterized in the films Beowulf and Grendel by director Sturla Gunnarsson and The 13th Warrior by director John McTiernan. These characterizations serve to interrogate the perception of monstrosity and the nature of evil in the preoccupation for this monstrous space. So the films produce a more nuanced discourse about the heroic nature in Beowulf. In the Anglo-Saxon epic poem Beowulf, Grendel and his mother inhabit a place of contradicting and intimidating nature, deep down in a subaquatic realm. This monstrous space is part of the landscape of the community, although it is situated in its borders. It is defined by what the warriors cannot know about its depth and the nature of what is hidden underneath the waters of the lake. It is a space that inspires terror to both humans and animals. It is a haunted landscape of contrasting elements and characteristics that could not be found in nature. In the text of the poem, King Hrothgar ends up summarizing the impression this space causes on him and that defines the essence of Grendel's mere. Nis thaet heoru stow. That is an unpleasant place. It is described with hellish characteristics. The mere is essentially a place where the normal, natural division of nature is altered. It is a space of unnatural contrast, and it is trapped in shadows and uncanny ambivalence that escapes human knowledge. The description of Grendel's mere in Beowulf is considered one of the most famous passages of the poem Beowulf and the finest piece of description in Anglo-Saxon verse. This is mainly due to the interest it sparked in critics, translators, and editors who try to conform a coherent and realistic picture of a physical space and to use it for the quest for analogues and to find a real map of the geography of Beowulf. One of the most remarkable aspects of this monstrous space is that the features of landscape that are provided cannot be harmonized with nature. In fact, Grendel's mere is a scenery that could hardly exist in nature at all. It has proved to be a mixture of impossible elements whose only aim is to provoke horror. And famously, it recalls the description of the entrance to hell due to these conflicted features of landscape in one single place. It is a space very much in relation with the very nature of the monster and the abilities of the hero to penetrate that space, fight the monster within, and escape with victory. Critics have long debated over the nature of this monstrous space in Beowulf, not only for a possible location and identification of a real hero and the community in the Old English poem, but also for a more realistic description of Grendel's mere and its possibility in the real world. It is also a difficult environment to portray in the film adaptations of the epic poem. Its contrasting elements and the characteristics of the monstrous space have been fractured and reorganized in the film adaptations to better suit the dynamics of interrogation of the heroic motives and the hero-monster distinction. The film adaptations of the poem have sought to materialize the monster and its threatening presence to transmit the epic story. It has been adapted to show the perception of monstrosity that the films interrogate and especially the points of connection between the warrior society and the monster in different ways. In the film The 13th Warrior, boundaries of humanity and bestiality are key elements in the film, and so we see that there is a constant preoccupation in the film with the nature of the monster. If the Wendels, that is the equivalent of Grendel in this film, are men, or if they are a type of animal. We see, for example, that they can use symbolic language and that they can use bones and structures to mark their territory, just as Grendel's mother did in the Beowulf poem with the warrior's head. So if they ride horses, if they use symbolic language, they should be men. But the way they attack, it identifies them with animals. This is also taken to the definition of their space, so their habitats. Even though the Wendels are able to contaminate with violence and terror all the spaces of the community, so in a sense they are able to turn any human dwelling, the hall, or any other type of house into the very space of the monster. The film, the Wendels have a lair. The lake of Omir is present as the warriors have to go down the earth into a labyrinthic set of caves and then swing into the ocean to escape. But what is most remarkable of this space is precisely what we find in the interior of the cave. Apart from the signs of death and cannibalism, we also find art, what could be identified as prehistoric art due to its shape and colors. And we also find signs of social organization equivalent to the community that the Wendels are attacking. So the lair is not of an animal, but of a group of primitive humans who are hunting other humans as prey in a conflict for territory and food. And that intensifies the horror that they create thanks to this reorganization of the monstrous space for this film adaptation of Beowulf. In Beowulf and Grendel, we see a more traditional approach to the description of the landscape for Grendel, taking from Scandinavian legends, the depiction of Grendel as a troll and his cave have taken a more realistic turn, and it is a cave under some cliffs. So the Icelandic landscape where the film was located allows for a more accurate geography of conflicting features of landscape with cliffs, hills, and seashore. However, the cave is defined also by the human remains of those of Grendel's father, so it is not only a monstrous house for Grendel, but it is a home with a place for veneration of the dead. As the narrative has shifted at a more central aspect of the poem, the monstrous space appears also in a different form, to reflect the warrior and problematize the conception of humanity and the reason for violence. The lake is turned upside down in a sort of way, and it is the hero who has to go up to meet the monster in this scene that is indeed funny, but also revealing of the emphasis of the film in the reasons behind violence and monstrosity. Grendel will not attack the hero Beowulf unless he does something wrong against the monster. So this reveals then that the monster has his own reasons for violence and that he is very human because of that. So the hero is confronted with a less than ideal image of the warrior community who turns out to be bullies who accosted and killed Grendel's father without motive. Morality then is denied to the warrior community because they are the ones who did wrong. The monstrous space is not so much a physical representation of the landscape, but of the movement of the hero's actions that are against justice. The monster here has the higher moral ground, and this is represented with space in the film, and this makes it more monstrous for the community. As a conclusion, the films have opted to represent the monstrous space as a reflection of the fears and anxieties of the society that the monster attacks. In the 13th Warrior, the narrative fixates on the cultural shock that the narrator experiences when encountering the Scandinavian warriors. This is taken further to interrogate what really makes a being human. What is the minimum civilization that is required to call someone human? The monster's cave represents a minimum that is a threat for society. In Beowulf and Grendel, the narrative interrogates the reasons for violence and the feud of the monster. It is revealed that the warriors are the ones who started the feud, and they are the ones who should be rightfully punished by any type of law. Grendel's cave, then, is a reflection of the society the monster attacked, where the monsters act out as counterparts of the human activities that show the true nature of the conflict. Grendel is not the opposite to what the warriors do in Herod. Grendel's cave is then a place where some of the key elements of the conflict make themselves visible. That is, fratricide conflict, the consumption of humans by a monster that could be defined as some type of human, inherent violence of warrior society, as we can see that this feature of landscapes come to represent an ancient geography from a time before the settlement of the warriors, where natural landscape was a vast surface without the borders and limits of the whole. It lies then, this type of space lies underneath the imposition of human limits and desires on the landscape.